Let me ask you something that most people never stop to reflect on. If money was purely about how much you earn, then why do so many people with decent salaries still feel stuck, stressed, and constantly behind? Why do people who earn more each year somehow end up saving the same amount or sometimes even less than when they were earning less? At some point, you have to accept a difficult truth. Money problems are not always income problems. More often than not, they are behavior problems disguised as income problems. Because if income alone solved financial stress, every promotion would create financial freedom. Every salary raise would create peace of mind. Every bonus would move people closer to wealth. But that's not what happens in reality. What usually happens is that people adjust. Their lifestyle adjusts. Their expectations adjust. Their spending adjusts. And without even noticing it, their financial pressure adjusts upward to match their income. So the real question is not how much do you earn? The real question is how do you behave when you earn it? This is where most people misunderstand wealth completely. They think wealth is built in big, dramatic moments, starting a business, getting a high-paying job, making a lucky investment. But in reality, wealth is built in the quiet, invisible decisions you make every single day. The small choices, the automatic habits, the emotional reactions to money. Think about it. Nobody wakes up and suddenly becomes broke overnight. It happens slowly, one unnecessary purchase at a time, one impulsive decision at a time. One I deserve this moment at a time, one ignored budget at a time. It's not one big mistake. It's a pattern of small self-sabotaging behaviors that compound over time. And that's the uncomfortable part, because it means the problem is not outside of you. It's inside your daily habits. For example, many people don't realize how much emotional decision-making controls their finances. You feel stressed, so you spend. You feel tired, so you treat yourself. You feel left out, so you buy something to fit in. You feel like you worked hard, so you reward yourself instantly. And none of these decisions feel dangerous in the moment. In fact, they feel justified. They feel earned, but money doesn't respond to emotion. It responds to patterns. And emotional spending creates a pattern where money is constantly leaking out faster than it can be built. Then there's another hidden trap, the belief that money issues will fix themselves later. People often delay financial responsibility. I'll start saving next month. I'll track my expenses later. I'll invest when I earn more. But later rarely comes with better habits. Later usually comes with higher expenses and the same mindset. And that's where self-sabotage quietly thrives, not in big mistakes, but in postponed discipline. So when we talk about money habits that keep you poor, we're not talking about intelligence. We're not talking about opportunity. We're talking about behavior that repeats without awareness. Behavior that feels normal but is financially destructive over time. And this is why so many people feel stuck. Not because they don't earn enough, but because they never interrupt the cycle. They never step back and ask, is the way I handle money actually helping my future self or just satisfying my present emotions? Because until that question is answered honestly, nothing changes. Income may increase, circumstances may improve, but the financial stress stays the same. Or worse, it grows quietly in the background. So before we even talk about strategies, investments, or saving plans, we have to start here, awareness. Awareness that your financial life is a reflection of your daily habits. And if the habits don't change, the outcome won't either. The second habit that keeps people financially stuck is something most don't even recognize as a problem at first: the addiction to instant gratification. And the reason it's so dangerous is because it doesn't feel like a mistake while you're doing it. In fact, it feels completely normal. Sometimes it even feels rewarding. But financially, it slowly pulls you away from any real sense of stability or freedom. Let's be honest with ourselves. We live in a world designed for immediate satisfaction. One click and you can buy something. One swipe and it's on its way to your door. One notification and your attention shifts to something new, something exciting, something that promises a quick emotional boost. And money becomes part of that same cycle. Earn it, spend it, feel good for a moment, then repeat. The problem is not spending money. The problem is the lack of distance between earning money and spending it. When there is no gap, no delay, no intention, money stops being a tool and becomes a reaction. You don't decide where your money goes. Your emotions decide for you. Think about how often spending is not really about need. It's about mood. You had a stressful day, so you buy something to feel better. You see someone else enjoying a lifestyle, so you buy something to feel included. You feel tired, so you treat yourself. You feel like you worked hard, so you reward yourself immediately. And in every case, the spending feels justified in the moment. But justification is not financial planning. It's emotional reasoning. And emotional reasoning with money is one of the fastest ways to lose control of it. What makes this habit even more dangerous is that it hides behind small amounts. It's not usually one big decision that creates the damage. It's 100 small decisions that seem harmless individually. A few extra purchases here, a subscription there, a convenience upgrade because you didn't feel like waiting, a small indulgence because it's not that expensive. But money doesn't measure impact in individual transactions. It measures patterns over time. And the pattern here is simple. Money enters and money exits just as quickly without ever being given a purpose. This is where people start feeling confused. They earn more, but they don't feel richer. Their income increases, but their savings don't. Their lifestyle improves, but their financial stress doesn't reduce. And they start wondering why money never seems to stay. The answer is uncomfortable but clear because money is being trained to leave as fast as it arrives. And the more you repeat this cycle, the stronger it becomes. Your brain starts associating earning money with immediate reward. So instead of thinking, how can I make this money grow? You think, what can I get from this money right now? That shift is subtle but powerful. Wealthy behavior is not about never spending. It's about delaying spending long enough for intention to replace impulse. Because when you delay gratification even slightly, you introduce logic into the decision. You give yourself space to ask, do I actually need this? Does this align with my goals? Or am I just reacting to how I feel right now? Most financial damage happens in the absence of that pause. And here's the deeper truth. Instant gratification is not really about money. It's about emotional control. It's about whether you can tolerate discomfort in the present for a better outcome in the future. Because wealth is rarely built by people who always feel like doing the right thing. It is built by people who do the right thing even when it doesn't give immediate satisfaction. So this habit is not just a spending issue. It is a discipline issue, a mindset issue, a long-term thinking issue. And until that is addressed, income will always feel temporary. Money will always feel like it disappears too quickly. And financial progress will always feel slower than expected, no matter how much more you earn. The third habit that quietly keeps people financially stuck is financial avoidance. And this one is particularly dangerous because it doesn't look like a mistake from the outside. In fact, many people who struggle with money still consider themselves generally fine with it. They earn, they spend, they manage things loosely in their head, and they assume that as long as nothing is going wrong right now, things are under control. But avoidance is not control. It is delay, and delay in money matters always compounds into confusion, stress, and eventually scarcity. Financial avoidance often starts in very subtle ways. You don't check your bank account regularly because you already know roughly what's in there. You don't track your spending because it feels complicated or time-consuming. You avoid looking at credit card statements because you don't want to feel stressed. You postpone creating a budget because you think you'll do it when life is less busy. You delay learning about saving or investing because it feels like something for later when I earn more. And slowly, without noticing it, money becomes something you react to rather than something you understand. This is where the real problem begins. Because when you don't engage with your money, you lose awareness. And when you lose awareness, you lose control. Not because you're incapable, but because you're uninformed about your own financial reality. Think about it clearly. You cannot improve something you are not looking at. You cannot fix a problem you are actively avoiding. And you cannot build wealth on numbers you are guessing instead of knowing. But avoidance creates the illusion of safety. As long as you are not checking, you feel like there are no problems. As long as you are not calculating, you feel like things are probably okay. But money doesn't disappear or stabilize just because you choose not to look at it. It continues moving quietly, consistently, and often in directions you are not aware of. This is how people end up shocked at their own financial situation. Not because something sudden happened, but because they finally looked closely enough to see what was always happening. And by that point, the gap between reality and expectation has already grown. Another layer of financial avoidance is decision fatigue. Many people avoid financial planning because they believe it requires complex knowledge or perfect systems. So instead of making imperfect decisions, they make no decisions at all. But in finance, no decision is still a decision. And usually, it is a decision that favors spending over saving and short-term comfort over long-term security. The irony is that most financial control does not come from complexity. It comes from visibility. When you can clearly see your income, your expenses, your obligations, and your habits, you naturally begin to adjust. Awareness itself creates discipline. You don't need extreme restrictions. You need clarity. But avoidance removes clarity. And without clarity, even high income becomes unstable. Because it is not the amount of money that creates financial confidence, it is the understanding of where that money is going and why. There is also an emotional side to this habit that is often ignored. For many people, avoiding money is a way of avoiding anxiety. If they look too closely, they fear they might feel overwhelmed. So they choose temporary peace over long-term control. But the irony is that avoidance doesn't remove anxiety. It only delays it. And when it eventually surfaces, it usually comes in a stronger, more stressful form. The key shift here is understanding that financial awareness is not meant to create stress. It is meant to remove uncertainty, because uncertainty is what actually creates financial anxiety. Not the numbers themselves, but the lack of understanding around them. Once you start engaging with your money consistently, something interesting happens. The fear reduces, the confusion reduces, and most importantly, your decision-making improves. You begin to see patterns in your spending. You notice unnecessary leaks. You identify habits that don't align with your goals. And slowly, your financial life becomes something you are actively shaping instead of passively experiencing. So financial avoidance is not just a habit of ignoring numbers. It is a habit of disconnecting from responsibility. And until that connection is rebuilt, financial progress will always feel inconsistent, unpredictable, and harder than it needs to be. The fourth habit that quietly destroys financial progress is lifestyle inflation combined with identity spending. And this is where things become even more subtle because on the surface, nothing looks wrong. In fact, from the outside, it often looks like success. You get a higher salary, you upgrade your lifestyle, you get a promotion, you improve your standard of living. You start earning more, and naturally you start spending more. It feels logical. It feels deserved. It feels like progress. But financially, it is one of the most common reasons people stay stuck. Lifestyle inflation is simple in structure but powerful in effect. As your income increases, your expenses increase at almost the same pace, sometimes even faster. You move to a better place, you buy better things, you eat out more, you upgrade your phone, your clothes, your car, your overall standard of consumption. And slowly, without noticing it, your financial pressure remains exactly the same as before, even though you are earning more. This is the paradox. More money, same stress. And the reason it happens is because income growth often triggers emotional spending disguised as reward. You tell yourself you deserve it. You tell yourself you worked hard for it. You tell yourself this is what progress looks like. And while none of that is entirely wrong, the problem is the lack of balance between reward and responsibility. Because every financial upgrade you make today reduces the gap between income and expenses that could have been used for saving, investing, or building long-term security. And that gap is where wealth actually grows. But there is a deeper layer to this habit, and that is identity spending. This is where money stops being just about comfort or convenience and starts becoming about who you believe you are. You don't just buy things because you need them. You buy them because they reflect the version of yourself you want to be seen as. Successful, modern, successful looking, socially aligned, accepted, sometimes even validated. And the problem is not wanting better things. The problem is using spending as proof of identity. I feel successful when I look successful. That mindset is expensive because it creates a financial loop where your income is no longer serving your future, it is serving your image. You start upgrading your life not based on what you can sustainably afford, but based on what feels consistent with the version of yourself you want to project. And slowly, money becomes a tool for perception rather than security. This is where many people get trapped. They don't feel rich enough to slow down spending, but they are also not building enough wealth to feel secure. So they remain in a constant cycle of earning and upgrading, with very little accumulation in between. And the most dangerous part is that this cycle feels like success while it is happening, because externally everything improves. Your lifestyle improves, your environment improves, your experiences improve, but internally, your financial foundation does not strengthen at the same pace. Real wealth building requires a different mindset. It requires understanding that not every increase in income needs to result in an increase in spending. It requires the ability to separate emotional reward from financial decision-making. It requires choosing stability over status, even when status feels more satisfying in the moment. Because wealth is not created by how much you can afford to spend. It is created by how much you choose not to spend, even when you can. And that is where lifestyle inflation becomes dangerous. Not because upgrading your life is wrong, but because upgrading without intention eliminates the very space needed for financial growth. The shift happens when you begin to see income increases not as permission to spend more, but as an opportunity to build more, to save more, to invest more, to create breathing room that your past self did not have. Because financial freedom is not built by matching your income to your lifestyle. It is built by deliberately keeping your lifestyle below your income long enough for your money to start working for you instead of just flowing through you. And until that shift happens, higher earnings will always feel like higher responsibility, not higher freedom.